And greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Apptrepreneur Show, or the Apptrepreneur Podcast. We're settling on a name. We're figuring it out. Don't worry. We'll get there at some point. Anyway, hey, I am Kevin, your Apptrepreneur. And it is an honor and a privilege to have all of you here today. And even if you're not here live, it is an honor to have you watching after the fact. Now then, to explain how we do things on this show, and to give people just, another minute so that they can come and get here. This is a live stream podcast where we talk about not one, not two, but several different topics involving the gig economy, the stock market, maybe even some streaming services. Who knows? We might throw that in today. As a result, this is live. And throughout the show, while I am discussing the articles and everything, chances are I will not be interacting with the live chat much. However, as you can see, it is there. And what we will do is, after we discuss the main topics, I will then go back and we will have a nice little back and forth chat. So for all of those who are watching, feel free to leave your comments, your questions, whatever you want, because they will at some point, be addressed. And, I will, of course, at the beginning of each show, acknowledge the first people who are here at the beginning, which today is Roger Fidel, Andrew Perchalski, and the Rideshare Club. Welcome, guys. So glad you could be here. And let's start with our first topic. And I was not going to make this the main topic, but I kind of decided, I think this is probably important, because one of the things that, at least before this became a news channel, that we used to talk about this on this channel, or discuss or whatever, was how to make money. And that was the whole concept behind the Apptrepreneur, is that I'm an entrepreneur who makes most of his money on apps. Still true, by the way. YouTube is an app. So YouTube is part of my Apptrepreneur business, if you will. But one of the big apps that entrepreneurs are using now, particularly up-and-coming entrepreneurs, is the stock trading app Robinhood. Now, we have made several videos about Robinhood, and I have been engaged with a little public social experiment to see, if I just put like a couple $100 in Robinhood a month, where would I be at the end of the year if I did some smart day trading and investments? And so far, I am about $1,500. Well, let me double check. Yeah, I'm about $1,500 minus today's losses, which I'm sure will bounce back, ahead of the game. But here's the thing. Anyone can do this. And in fact, many millennials, gig workers, and even up-and-coming investors have been using Robinhood and have actually been cashing in on an opportunity that billionaires did not see coming. Because here's the thing, when you have been trading on Wall Street for a long time, and I know people who are professional Wall Street traders. Heck, my Uncle Terrence for a long time was a high Wall Street executive. So this is one of the reasons I know about the stock market, is that investors tend to panic a lot. And when the market starts going down, they start selling. But then they sometimes don't start buying until there are signs that the market is recovering. And this is actually this is not how you're supposed to be doing it. In fact, when the market is going down, that is the time to buy and to hold. And Robinhood traders seem to have realized this, and they are, profiting quite a bit. As we see on CNBC, one 26-year-old Robinhood trader made $1,500 in less than 24 hours betting on a beaten-down airline stock, while many so-called experts on Wall Street warned about buying into an overvalued stock market that was bound to tumble again amid the C virus pandemic. Yep, we're going back to C virus because I did that live. We did yesterday's episode. I said the word, and guess what? Demonetization. So there you go. Last Thursday, Laquan Godbolt purchased a call option for American Airlines, which, for the record, I have American Airlines right now, that made him $200 on the millennial favorite stock trading app. After seeing reports that the airline was increasing domestic flying for summer travel, Godbolt bought another call option minutes before the close. When the market opened higher last Friday after a surprisingly positive jobs report, Godbolt raked in his profits. As he stated, "I just started taking it seriously about 2 months ago," a New York resident told CNBC. "I've been watching AAL since the beginning of that time, and I felt eventually, once the C virus relaxed, markets would move up." Godbolt is not alone in his success trading on the market. One Chicago resident flipped his sister's stimulus check into nearly $10,000. Robinhood traders lived up to their outlaw name during the C virus market downturn. The young investors booked profits, trading stocks with some of the best returns in the past 2 months, while other Wall Street veterans were left scratching their heads. As Tim Welsh, founder of the CEO of wealth management consulting firm Nexus Strategy told NBC, "There's nothing like momentum betting momentum. The aspects of just access is really driving a lot of this, and the whole upward tick in markets again just fuels demand." And here's why I decided to make this kind of the first thing to talk about, because people talk about how, like, you know, they need, well, let's step back a little bit, because I want to be careful not to presume too much. I know everyone's financial situation is different, you know, but one of the things I've been telling people on various live streams in the past, hey, if you're going to do Uber, if you're going to do Lyft, you know what a lot of people do? They take their tips and they donate them to charity, which, hey, you know, that's noble, totally fine. That's fine, because it helps them with the tax breaks. However, if you had been betting on a market 3 months ago that was beaten and bruised, look at what could have happened. It could have gone way, way, way up. As you can see, there's a little bit of a dip there. This is one of the problems with having what, you know, I probably should, you know, sell that while I'm still ahead of the game. But again, just to put things into perspective, see, as long as you're not losing money, that's fine. It's just a down day in general today, kind of a hit and miss. But look, Robinhood is a great app. It really is a great app. And this could be you. I did not put a huge amount of money into it, except for one time when, and I was perfectly upfront about this, when the markets had crashed and Disney stock got below $100 in share. I took $1,000 out of my savings and put it into Disney, and by the way, made a lot of money doing it. But for the most part, this is me just putting like $50 to $100 in Robinhood every other week. This could easily be you. It can. But you know, the only thing you have to do is you just have to take the step. And here's the thing. This is also why sometimes reading these investment magazines and stuff isn't necessarily the greatest idea, because these people think they can read the market. No one can read the market. Not really. They looked and said, hey, everyone's pulling their money out. Now's the worst time to be getting in. You're going to lose everything. And what's interesting is most people made money in stocks that a lot of people presumed would never come back. Like when everyone was panicking, it's like, oh no one will ever fly again. Airline stocks, most of them under $10 at one point. Movie theaters, no one's going to ever go to the movie theater again. AMC got to less than $2 a share, and Cinemark was less than $10 a share. And then, and this is the one that I actually spoke out against, so I look a little foolish, Uber and Lyft got to less than $10 a share. And I foolishly felt that whole, like, I think this is the end of rideshare. I kind of forgot about Uber Eats and did not realize that Uber Eats would strengthen Uber's position. I don't know why Lyft is still doing well, though. Lyft is pretty resilient. I don't know why, but people still bought into Lyft. But a lot of people were able to buy like $500 worth of Uber and Lyft shares, and now they're over $30 a share. They made bank. So, here's the thing. The market is not stable. It isn't. Again, look at this. This was yesterday. This was yesterday. Look at how, and within one day, it's a bit of a dip. Like a few $100 dip. That happens sometimes. But also, look at some of the things I was investing in. Now, I made a mistake on this one. I sold this stock yesterday because I thought that it would be going way down today because the earnings report I knew were going to show huge losses. They did, $2.2 billion in losses, but I did not realize how powerful an argument it would be that the movie theaters were opening up in a couple weeks. So AMC was doing very well. However, I have profited over $300 on buying and selling the stock. So yeah, I rebought the stocks and I've lost $40 on it. But look where I bought it. I bought it around here. And look where it ended up. And I've bought and sold it a few times, have never lost money on this stock. You know, these are the... And what about JetBlue? You know, I bought several stocks around here, and look, it's still kind of in that area, but it's going up. It's going up. In fact, let's look at AAL, because that was in the article right there. AAL, I bought several shares here, and look, it's pretty much determined to climb. Now, it's still not exactly stable, and for some reason, the analysts are saying, 42% of the analysts are saying sell, and only 21% are saying buy. But these are companies that people assume will not be around anymore, but the reality is, movie theaters, airplanes, rideshare, look, they're with us for the long haul. They are with us for the long haul. And so when those stocks are down, that's usually when you want to buy. Now, the one stock that I'm definitely regretting just a little bit, granted, I didn't put a lot into this, but I put $56 into Hertz. It seemed like it was recovering, and maybe it's not. I might actually lose on this one. So, to a certain extent, this is gambling. This is totally gambling. However, you can cash out on this. You can. And by the way, if you want to get a free stock, I just have to put it out there. You can sign up with my link below and collect your free stock. And this is also not exactly financial advice. I'm just explaining that, look, we can make money doing this. You can make money doing it too, and you can do it for a little bit of money. Like one more time, this 3 months. $50 to $100 every other week, and look at where, even though it's down, I am still ahead $1,300. So, and in reality, I'm ahead more because, again, I sell and then rebuy. So, just keep that in mind. Anyway, that's where we are going to leave that topic. What do you think? Do you do any Robinhood? Have you any success stories, or did you lose a lot? I would love to know. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly. And with that out of the way, it's time for the second topic after I take a little drink. Because, geez, one of the hard things about these podcasts is how much you end up talking. Now then, our next topic is one that, honestly, it is a pretty familiar one. It's a pretty familiar one. It is. But it bears repeating once in a while. Now, what's interesting is that we don't have the whole article on this one. But I don't think we really need the whole article on this one because, well, California regulators have ruled, once again, that Uber and Lyft drivers are employees. Now then, the California agency that regulates Uber and Lyft said in an order Tuesday that ride-hail drivers are employees under AB 5, the state's new gig work law, marking a significant development in the battle over driver status. Of course, that's only until the next significant development happens. Quote, For now, TNC drivers are presumed to be employees, and the commission must ensure that TNCs comply with those requirements that are applicable to the employees of an entity subject to the commission's jurisdiction, wrote Genevieve Shiroma, a commissioner with the California Public Utilities Commission. The order used the acronym for Transportation Network Companies, which is how the commission classifies ride-hail operators. Now, again, we don't have the whole article here. We just don't. But I am going to say we probably don't need it because it says what we know, what we expect. Now, California has been pretty consistent that they believe Uber and Lyft drivers are employees. And here's the thing. It doesn't even matter whether you think you're employees or not. It doesn't matter if you want to be employees or not. By every measurement that California has measured before and after AB5, Uber and Lyft drivers are employees. Now, again, and there's some fallacies when Uber and Lyft make an argument like, they're trying to take away your right. No, they're not. Uber and Lyft can have you be employees and still give you your freedoms. They can still give you your flexibility. They can still give you, in fact, no, it'd be really easy for you to keep your flexibility. You want to know how you get to keep your flexibility as an employee with an Uber and Lyft driver? You have it's an app, right? It's an app. So what you do is it's like, hey, these are the hours. If you start working, you have to, it's like a clock-in thing. You clock on and okay, once you turn the app on, you have clocked on. And this is how many hours in the day you can drive before you hit overtime. And then the app can kick you off, or, if you're in the middle of a ride, you can get a little bit of overtime. And if you want your employment benefits, you have to drive this much per week. And you have, there's ways you can do to be flexible, where it's like, okay, if you are a part-time employee, you can drive this many hours this week, whenever you want, whatever days you want. This is just what you have to drive. You have to keep it under this hour. If you are full-time, you have to do at least this much time, and you can still, drive whenever you want. There are ways Uber and Lyft can do this. And if they really want you to be independent, then hey, there are a lot of things they can do where you are independent. They can say, hey, you know what? The star grade system, that's no longer a thing. You can't be deactivated for this. Get a complaint. You know what? It's between you and the customer. We don't get involved. Also, pay. Hey, you charge what you charge. It's like if you want to charge less than minimum wage, that's up to you. If you want to charge more, that's up to you. We do not say one way or another. There are things Uber and Lyft can do to keep you independent. Now, what does this mean? It means we're going to be voting on AB5 this fall, this election season. Uber and Lyft are pretty dang insistent. They especially do not want to lose California. California is one of their big, big markets. They don't want to lose that market. So, of course, they're going to fight. But California keeps beating them down, whether it be the California Supreme Court or the governor, or heck, what was this again? This is the California agency, the California Public Utilities Commission. That's what it is. They're all saying the same thing. Hey, we're testing this, we're measuring this. Uber and Lyft drivers are employees. That's just what they're going to say. That's what they say, and that's how it is. So, look, I know that there are people who obviously watch this show. They watch this chat. By the way, I see we have 23 people watching. If you're enjoying this, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to ask your questions because we will be answering them after the topics are over. But I know a lot of people here want to be independent, and you know what? That I understand that. Independence is addicting. But as I've argued, you're not independent. You don't control your rates. You actually do have limitations on how long you can drive, and if you get pulled, you don't always know where you're going. Now, California Uber apps, not most Uber apps, but in California, the Uber app has made some adjustments for that. But it's still not true independence. And unless Uber and Lyft actually make their drivers truly independent, these conversations are going to continue. But in the meantime, I would like to know what you think of all of this. And everyone's got an opinion on this one. So I'd like to know what you think. Comment below. Like, favorite, share, subscribe. And as always, flame responsibly. And with that down, let's move on to the third topic. And the third topic is going to be interesting because this is not a topic I would typically discuss on the Apptrepreneur channel. It is, however, a topic I would normally discuss on the Apptrepreneur Vlogs channel because that's also my media channel. So, this is going to be an interesting one live because I don't know how many people here care about this, but we're going to talk about it anyway. And if you all decide to start leaving, I'm just going to warn you, we have more rideshare topics after this one, so I've got you there. But let's talk about Gone with the Wind. Yeah, seriously, let's talk about Gone with the Wind. I know it's not a very manly thing to say, but I love Gone with the Wind. I think Gone with the Wind is one of the greatest movies ever made. Not only with a storyline, but with the epicness, the scope, the filming, the classic dialogue. I mean, Gone with the Wind still has one of the best uses of color. You know, when they're standing over, you know, looking over the south and like the reds and the greens, and it's just I like this movie so much. Like let me just show what a nerd I am. I have this ultimate 70th anniversary of Gone with the Wind, and this was bought like over 10 years ago. This is like a more than 80-year-old movie, and I mean, just look at that. This is. I'm gonna make a video about the set of this. So I love Gone with the Wind. That said, I'm gonna have to acknowledge what everyone who loves old movies usually have to acknowledge. There are some problems with the movie, politically speaking. Gone with the Wind, as my college teacher so elegantly put, is the ultimate movie of the great and perfect South where everything was perfect until the Civil War came and just screwed everything up. That's one of the underlying themes of Gone with the Wind. Now, Gone with the Wind is about a lot of things. It's also about a spoiled rich girl who loses everything and uses her love life to basically reclaim status in the world. I mean, there's a lot going on in this movie, but yeah, it's pretty clear it's about the Civil War, and the movie kind of has an opinion that, you know, the South was a really awesome place before the Civil War came and ruined everything, and especially in today's climate, that can be a problem. Now, the reason we're discussing this is because John Ridley, a screenwriter who I happen to respect quite a bit, wrote this op-ed piece for the Los Angeles Times, and it's titled, "Hey, HBO, Gone with the Wind romanticizes the horrors of slavery. Take it off your platform now." Now, there's a lot to unpack in that sentence. First of all, he says that Gone with the Wind romanticizes the horrors of slavery. Yeah, I'm not gonna disagree with that. It totally romanticizes the horrors of slavery. Like that is one of the main social problems the movie has. It probably is the biggest one, in fact. But then you have the other one. Take it off your platform now. And this is where I start getting a little frustrated. You see, one of my big concerns with all these streaming services, whether it be Netflix, Disney Plus, or HBO Max, or even Crunchyroll, is that when you have a modern audience with modern sensibilities, they're not always watching movies the way I watch movies. For example, when I watch like Vertigo, Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, which is a classic film by every definition, to a modern audience, it is especially creepy that Jimmy Stewart is obsessing over this woman and he's making her dress a certain way, and he's kind of molding her to fit his image. Which, by the way, I think the movie itself acknowledges that it's creepy, but here's the thing. To a modern audience, when they watch something like that, it is especially unsettling. But back then, it wasn't as unsettling because women just did that for some men. Now, we know years later that is a problem. That is a problem, and this behavior is not acceptable. And again, in the movie, it technically wasn't acceptable. But that movie will offend people. But when I'm watching at it, I'm watching like, okay, this was made 60, 50, something, whatever years ago. This was not as much of an eyebrow raiser. It was enough of an eyebrow raiser to still create tension in the movie, but you know, there was a lot of submissive wives in movies back then, and girlfriends. So you just kind of accept, well, context, that's how movies were back then. And some people thought it was okay, and unfortunately there's just nothing you can do about that. You can choose not to make movies like that anymore. It's the same thing with Gone with the Wind. This movie is over 80 years old. I believe it was 1940 or 1939, something like that. And so there was, at the time, still some sentiment that, you know, we had ruined the South with the Civil War, and that is one of the reasons Gone with the Wind did catch on. So it is problematic in that regard. But when you ignore things like that, and you're looking at what else the movie's about, it's grand, it's epic, it's colorful. You know, Scarlett O'Hara is just one of those protagonists that you love to hate. One of the reasons that Tomorrow is Another Day is such a memorable final line is because basically at the end of the movie, she gets everything she deserves. She loses her daughter, loses the house. Her husband walks out on her, and when she asks him, "What about me?" he says, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn," and he walks out on her. But she is determined not to let any of this keep her down. So, hey, today we lick our wounds, but tomorrow is another day. Hey, that's a great scene. It really is. Now, let's talk about the whole HBO Max thing and what this letter is saying. And John Ridley, who, by the way, he won an Oscar for another Best Picture winner, 12 Years a Slave. Excellent movie, by the way. He wrote a fairly short letter about this. First of all, he congratulates Warner Media on the launch of HBO Max, and he has one request. Please consider removing Gone with the Wind from your rotation of films. Now, because of this headline, I thought this was going to be a lot worse than it was, but his request was actually very reasonable. Because he says, as a filmmaker, I get that movies are often snapshots of moments in history. They reflect not only the attitudes and opinions of those involved in their creation, but also those of the prevailing culture. As such, even the most well-intentioned films can fall short in how they represent marginalized communities. Gone with the Wind, however, is in its own unique problem. It doesn't just fall short with regard to representation. It is a film that glorifies the antebellum South. It is a film that, when it is not ignoring the horrors of slavery, and it really does, pauses only to perpetuate some of the most painful stereotypes of people of color. It is a film that, as part of the narrative of the Lost Cause, romanticizes the Confederacy in a way that continues to give legitimacy to the notion that the secession movement was something more or better or more noble than what it was. A bloody insurrection to maintain the right to own, sell, and buy human beings. Now then, again, he's not wrong in any of this. This is all right. He's correct. And so I could certainly understand why that would be a problem. It is a problem. And this is where I give him a lot of credit because unlike what this headline says, like this, and the headline is the main reason I have the problem with this, but he continues at one point, let me be real clear. I don't believe in censorship. I don't think Gone with the Wind should be relegated to a vault in Burbank. I would just ask, after a respectful amount of time has passed, that the film be reintroduced to the HBO Max platform along with other films that give a more broad-based and complete picture of what slavery and the Confederacy truly were. Or perhaps it could be paired with conversations about narratives and why it's important to have many voices sharing different stories from different perspectives rather than merely those reinforcing the views of the prevailing culture. Currently, there is not even a warning or disclaimer preceding the film. And by the way, it should also be noted, Gone with the Wind is rated G. So, take from that what you will. I know taking down a film, particularly a classic Hollywood film, seems like a big request, but it's not nearly as big a demand as when your children ask whether they can join protests in the streets against racial intolerance, or when they come to you wanting to know what you did to make the world a better place. Now, here's the thing. I disagree with this headline because it comes off as like, I am demanding you do this. I am demanding this. You need to do this. You need to do what I say. And I'm having really big problems with that right now as people make more and more grandiose demands because they are offended by something. The actual letter was very respectful and I thought a good compromise. And here's the thing. Warner Brothers actually did this. They pulled Gone with the Wind. And they are going to put it back on the platform. Now, here's the thing. What are they going to do to, reintroduce the film? Well, let's go down and, okay, I can't find it specifically, but here's what Warner Media has said. They are that they were temporarily taking the film down until, the situation that we're currently in has cooled down a little bit. Once the situation's cooled down, it will be reintroduced, but it will have a disclaimer. It will have some conversations about the problems of this film. And Warner Brothers' response was something along the lines of that basically the thoughts in this film were wrong then, and they're wrong now, but to not show the film, and they do this for their cartoons too, by the way, would be as if to pretend as if these things never happened. And when you try to pretend these things did not happen, it creates a huge problem because we don't learn anything from it. In fact, I was on Twitter talking to Sasha Stone, the editor of Awards Daily, who I do not agree with on many political things. I just do not. But she's starting to agree with me on at least one thing, that the Twitter hive mind is probably a pretty dangerous thing. That, you can't have companies and newspapers and Hollywood just, the term that people like to use right now is bend the knee, but I prefer to use the word cave. We can't have them caving to every outlandish, outrageous demand. Now, thankfully, this request was reasonable. I am a little concerned that because of the way the headlines are written, and people usually don't go beyond the headlines, that people are going to feel that this is an excuse to go to other companies and demand other movies be pulled. Because, hey, Lawrence of Arabia, classic film. There's not a lot of Arabs in that film actually playing Arabs. What about the original West Side Story that's on the Criterion channel? Natalie Wood ain't Puerto Rican. She just ain't. I mean, she did a great job in that performance, but speaking as a Puerto Rican myself, guess what? She ain't Puerto Rican. And I do not want to see these films go away. I want us to learn from them. I also don't think remaking them is the answer. Certainly, you can remake a film and, have your own take on it. But I still like going back to the original movies. I like seeing how they were made. I like studying them. That really is my passion. So, if there is a lesson in all of this, honestly, keep your discs. Keep your discs. And I'm going to be following this story because here's the thing. I am actually going to watch Gone with the Wind when it comes back to HBO Max because I want to see Because one of the things Warner Bros. Said, they are not editing the film, and I want to see if they actually stick with that. That's the problem with streaming. It can come, it can go, they can change it. There's not much you can do about it. But on a final note of this, before we move on to the next couple topics on the list, I find the timing of this story to be especially interesting, because today would have been Hattie McDaniel's 125th birthday. For those of you who are not aware of Hattie McDaniel, this is her. And Gone with the Wind, one of the real sticking points between the African American community and Gone with the Wind is that Gone with the Wind is important because it was the first time a black actor or actress had won a competitive Oscar. Hattie McDaniel became the first woman of color to win Best Supporting Actress for her role as Mammy. And, by the way, she was up against one of her co-stars, Olivia de Havilland, for the same movie, and de Havilland was considered the front runner to win this award. And in a situation that was very Rosa Parks-ish like, when she was nominated, the studio had to fight to let her in to the building, because the building that was hosting the Academy Awards had a no colored people policy, and they were not going to let her in. They had to fight to get her in the building, and when she was in the building, she had to sit in the back. She couldn't sit up front with her white co-stars, not because they didn't want her there, but because the building managers said she had to sit in the back. And then she won the Oscar. And, you know, when you tell the story from that perspective, what a giant F-you to the building. Like, yeah, they're going to try to prevent this woman from coming to the party, and they're going to put her in the back, and she wins. She's one of the big winners that night, and that's great. But then, of course, then the problem years later is like, well, it's a stereotype. Mammy is a stereotype. And that was the first Academy Award winner for an African American. And yeah, so it is such a messy situation when you really stop and look at it this way. But it would have been her 125th birthday. Of course, she's no longer with us. But she did leave a mark on history, and we're still talking about her. So I think that's really cool. Anyway, that was a loaded one. What do any of you think? Please keep your comments kind. If someone is offended by this movie, they're not wrong to be offended by this movie. And if they love this movie, they're not wrong to love the movie. But what do you think about this whole situation? Do you think HBO Max did the right thing? Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and flame responsibly. And with that done, this one's going to be a short topic. This one is going to be a short topic because well, maybe it won't be, because I've got mixed feelings about it. But we have this story about 3M suing price gougers who use Amazon to sell masks at a 1,800% markup. Now, you know, how should I put this? Reselling goods on Amazon and eBay that are in short supply but in high demand is a very, very touchy subject for a lot of people. Most people are of the opinion that it is taking advantage of a situation, that it is wrong, and that it is scummy. And they are not necessarily wrong in feeling that way. I can see the merits on that argument. And then there are some people, much less obviously, who believe that it's not price gouging, it's a supply and demand thing. Like, hey, we are doing a service to you. We are providing this item that you otherwise would not be able to get, and we are providing it at great risk to ourselves, and we deserve some compensation for that. And I could see the merits of that argument too. A little less than the other one, but there is something to be said there. Well, 3M, the makers of the N95 masks, have definitely had enough of the price gouging, and they are taking matters into their own hands. So, here's the article. 3M is suing merchants who use Amazon to sell 3M and counterfeit masks for more than 18 times the standard price. A group of third-party merchants on Amazon operated an illegal scheme to advertise and sell counterfeit, damaged, deficient, and otherwise altered respirators to customers, 3M alleges in the complaint filed in federal court, California. 3M has dramatically increased its production of N95 respirator masks, the company says, but has kept its pricing between 63 cents and $3.40 per mask, depending on the model. The resellers in the suit, however, were allegedly selling a model that has a typical list price of $1.27 for an average of $23.21 per mask, more than 18 times higher than 3M's price. Now, Amazon has already taken it down, but this is an interesting suit. Because here's the thing. In some states, it is actually very, very much illegal to be taking advantage of a pandemic. If you, for example, have bottles of water, you bought them legally, there was no issue, but now there's a short supply of water. It's just, no, I'm not going to actually dump it out. I'm going to take a sip, though. Like, all of a sudden, there's no water. There is no water, and bottled water is now a commodity. And that person who bought the water legally is now selling what would normally be a 25-cent bottle of water for $2, just for example. In some states, that is illegal, but it's not illegal in all states. And so, depending on where these sellers were, 3M might have a very difficult task in prosecuting those people. Now, what's also interesting about this suit, though, is that they have also alleged that counterfeit masks were also being sold. And my question in this is, and we might actually look at some comments before we end the story, so if you have any comments about any of this, please, now's your time to share them, because we might be addressing them. I don't know if 3M can actually sue anyone for counterfeit masks. I mean, not unless the counterfeit masks had their branding on them, which if that's what they do, then maybe they have the right to sue them. But if you're just making a counterfeit mask and overcharging, I'm sure that's illegal. I'm not saying it's not, but I don't know if 3M has the right to sue those people who are making the counterfeit masks and selling them for 18 times the standard price. Anyway, 3M seeks financial penalties against the resellers, but says any monetary awards it receives will be donated to charitable C virus relief efforts, which, hopefully that is true, but they legally don't have to do that, and who knows if they actually will. Now, let me kind of just go over and see what some of you are saying. Let's see here. Tamara says, no, they should keep it. People complain about everything, then everyone will want to take everything. Oh, that's for HBO Mask. So, no one really has anything to say about the masks, apparently. By the way, if you're watching live, thumbs up would be appreciated if you haven't. So anyway, I don't know. This is kind of weird. I understand where 3M is coming from, but in terms of the masks that were legally bought and resold at a higher price, unless the sellers are from a state which does criminalize price gouging during a pandemic or a disaster or, act of God or whatever, that would be a hard case for them to win. And as for the counterfeits, while counterfeiting items and selling them are certainly illegal, unless they're using the 3M branding, I don't think it's 3M's place to sue these people. Now, they might just be trying to bring attention to it, and then they'll let law enforcement take care of it, provided we don't defund the police too much. Sorry, bad joke, but I could not resist. So I don't know, but this is going to be. I'm kind of curious to see where this one goes. But I'd like to know, what do all of you think about this? Do you think 3M is in a good place to sue the price gougers and the counterfeiters? Do you think they have a case, or do you think they really don't have a case? I'd love to know. Comment below. Like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly. And now, let's talk let's do the last topic today. The last topic of the day. And then we will converse with one another for a little while afterwards, which is what all the questions in the chat box are for. But one of the things we have been talking about is Uber and Grubhub potentially merging, or Uber buying Grubhub. Basically, the companies are going to go from 2 to 1. They're going to consolidate, whatever the term is. And obviously investors like it because it gives Uber some monopolistic power over the food delivery service. But concerns have been raised, antitrust concerns have been raised, that might create a monopoly, and Uber might become too powerful in at least a few markets. And the last we had talked about this, Grubhub was raising concerns about how this deal, the way it stands, would probably be targeted by lawmakers and senators and congressmen because it would be antitrust in nature. And Uber did not appear to want to deal with it. Well, apparently the talks have been breaking down more and more because reports are indicating that Uber will not be buying Grubhub and that Grubhub will sell to a European rival. So, and in fact, we have an update on this. So, the reports this morning that Uber, the American ride-hailing giant with a global footprint, will lose out on its attempt to buy Grubhub, an American food ordering delivery service. So, that was the story this morning. But we don't even have to read most of this article, because the update is that Just Eat's Takeaway confirmed today in a release that it is in advanced discussions with Grubhub regarding an all-share combination of JustEatTakeaway.com with Grubhub. In fact, let's move over to this article now, because this seems to be the much more relevant. Are you going to go over? Oh, it's a press release. That's what it is. It's a press release. Let's look at this. So here, it's an official press release. JustEatTakeaway.com. This was June 10th, so this is today. But the possible combination of JustEatTakeaway.com and Grubhub. The management board of JustEatTakeaway.com NV notes the press speculation in relation to a possible combination of the businesses of JustEatTakeaway.com and Grubhub Incorporated. The management board of JustEatTakeaway.com confirms that it is in advanced discussions with Grubhub regarding an all-share combination of JustEatTakeaway.com with Grubhub. A further announcement will be made when appropriate. So, this is, and a lot of this we don't need to read, obviously, but this is JustEatTakeaway.com saying, yeah, we've talked to Grubhub. We've talked to them. The talks are in advanced talks. And you know what? When you combine the concern about the antitrust laws with Uber, I'm definitely thinking Uber isn't getting Grubhub. I am thinking Uber is going to lose out on this one. And hey, that's perfectly fine by me. I don't think Uber needs Grubhub. I think Uber just wanted to gain more power. Because here's the thing, their rideshare business is not doing very well, but their food delivery platform is doing very well. So they wanted to gain more power in that market. That was the whole goal of this. And they would have had monopolistic power in some cases. And they seem to be ignoring Grubhub's concerns that it could be considered anti-competitive. Not that Uber cares. Uber only cares about themselves. So, at the time being, it looks like Uber is going to lose the Grubhub deal, which I am perfectly okay with. I am perfectly okay with that outcome. But now the question is, what about you? Are you happy to see that outcome go away, or are you disappointed that it's not going to go through? I'd love to know. Comment below. Like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one. And with that done, with that done, we have gotten through all the topics today. Now, these topics will, of course, be broken up into little mini sections so that if you want to share any of the stories with people, but you don't want to share the whole video, which will probably also have a lot of ads, let's be honest, then you can just select them, although at least one of these videos will be on my Apptrepreneur Vlogs channel. Now, let's go to the chat. And let us talk, let us answer questions. I've got 10 likes, thank you. If anyone wants to like again, that'd be great. Since the video started, one of my favorite Patreon and YouTube members, Ryan's Treasures, came along. Raphael is here. We have Low Roller Scratcher. And Low Roller Scratcher says, you heard a lot of people buying bankrupt stocks like JCPenney, Hertz, and others. I heard it in the news this week. Yeah, well, that is not surprising. Here's why, and for the record, you all saw, I bought some Hertz stock. That will probably end up being a mistake because I will probably lose that $56. But I did buy some Hertz stock. And I bought it because it was cheap and it seemed to be going up. But buying stocks from bankrupt companies is risky because they are at risk of being delisted. The companies might not survive. The reason people tend to buy bankrupt stocks is because the stocks are super, super cheap. So, like, sometimes they're like less than $1 a share. And when it's less than $1 a share, hey, you've got $200 in savings lying around. It's like, put it on red. You know, chances are it's going to go on black. But there's a chance that, hey, maybe it lands on red and you win a big payout. And that's why people tend to buy bankrupt stocks. But it is incredibly risky to do so. Now, Ryan says, I haven't tried Robinhood, but after seeing several videos of yours on it, I really should. Well, just make sure to use my referral code. And Lisa, hey Lisa, how are you doing? She says, I have Robinhood, but I don't know how to use it. I just bought stocks and did nothing with them. I don't even know if I made money. Well, Lisa, the way you make money with stocks is you sell them. Ideally, you sell them for more than what you paid for them. Now, in some cases, like particularly with like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Disney, these stocks pay good dividends. So if you buy a lot of these stocks, then you will get a little bit of money every couple months in dividends. And so there's different types of stock buyers. Some, which are like me, they do a little bit of the day trading. They buy low when they hope it goes high, and then they sell when it's high, and they pocket their money, and they either reinvest when it goes low again, or they move on to something else. Some people do the long-term game where it's like they see these companies being around for 5 years. They see them potentially growing in 5 years, and they pay dividends. So they buy as many dividend-heavy stocks as they can so that at some point they're getting money coming in, and then maybe, hopefully, they can own enough someday where they can live off those dividends. So that's how you make money on stocks. And of course, Low Roller Scratcher is pressing Webull. So let's go to Webull just so that people can see what Webull is. Webull is this: enjoy tech, enjoy investing, zero commission, and no deposit minimums. Everyone gets smart tools for investing. Now, there was a reason I wasn't going to sign up for Webull, and I'm trying to remember why, but I think there was a minimum you had to put in to trade with Webull. But that might not be an issue for me anymore. I might end up getting something on Webull at some point. So, we might be doing Webull at some point, but right now I'm enjoying Robinhood. It's just easy, and I'm already doing it. But, there's no wrong answer. Fidelity is doing no commission stocks anymore, and they're even doing fractional shares that you can buy. So say you want to buy into Apple, but you don't want to spend $300 on one share. You can put $20 and buy a fractional share, and you can just do that every month until you have a full share of Apple. So, my nose is itchy, sorry. So, yep. So let's see here. Rideshare Lisa says, Instacart runs its app and shoppers like independent contractors now. So, Instacart has been much, much better much, much better at responding to AB5 and criticism and lawmakers. They've done a much, much better job at saying, like, okay, this is a concern, let's do this. Now, they still have a sneaky side to them. They still, twist and turn in and out to kind of get around wording, I should say, to try to keep their foot on the driver's back, if you will. Forgive the analogy, but it's true. That's what people have been saying. It's felt like for years that they've got their boot on their back, and they're, like, oh, yeah, like, first you could see how much you're making up front, and then you can't, and then it's... But overall, Instacart seems to be better at least pretending like they care. So, yeah, it does not surprise me that Instacart feels like a true independent platform. Now, she also says that was the best movie ever. So, this is... looks like I have like a lot of people are fans of Gone with the Wind. Which, hey, that makes sense. It's one of the greatest movies ever made. Problematic though it may be, it is an excellent movie. Ryan says, if and when you do your Walt Disney's Treasures Wave 8, will it be on your vlogs channel? I haven't decided. I really got to make that. I mean, I'm just a few waves away. But one of the problems is, like, I made the first videos when I was trying to be encyclopedia, and that never caught on. And I'm not as excited about the later waves as I am. Like, there's one particular title in Wave 8 that has been a problem because I haven't watched any of it except for, like, the intros and stuff. And I'm having a hard time bringing myself to watch it, and I feel like it's being dishonest to do that video. So, here, what I might do, I might honestly just skip that wave for the time being and see if I can't get through the other waves first. Because if I can get the other waves done and then I'm done all but one wave of those reviews, then at that point, okay, that's motivation to finish what I started. But yeah, there's just one title in that wave that's just become a problem, and I don't know. Anyway, Tamara says, I know about the Robin app, but I've never bought or dumped stock before. Any advice? Well, Tamara, I have videos on Robinhood where I give it various amounts of advice, and we will continue making videos on Robinhood. So the best thing you can do, first of all, if you're going to sign up, use my link below. Use a referral link before signing up for Robinhood. Get your free stock. It's not always going to be a good stock. It'll usually be a stock that's like $4. But hey, one of my free stocks was a Microsoft stock that was valued at $100 at the time. And that stock is now over $200. So get your free stock. Sign up with the referral link below or use a friend's. Otherwise, subscribe to this channel, ring the bell, and be notified for when the Robinhood videos go out. That's when I give stock advice. And again, well, I should temper that. It's not necessarily advice. I share what I do with the stocks. And you have to make your own choices, but I can kind of show you what I'm doing, and you can get an idea of it. Lisa says 1939, I think. Ryan says, but I guess it would make sense to move the series to your vlog channel if that's where all your physical media views are going. He also says, you're not alone. I'm a male and love it too. In fact, I'm a bit jealous of your Blu-ray box set. I sadly only have the single disc Blu-ray, which has only the audio commentary as its lone bonus feature. Yeah, let's bring that set back up again, because this thing is just so neat. So, aside from this like gorgeous little box that you get with it, you have this you have this booklet with pictures of movie posters and the actors and sets. It's a really pretty book. So that's a neat little bonus feature to have. What it also has in here are replicas of memos from the producers and actors about the making of the movie. And like, for example, this. Oh, by the way, this thing right here. This is the program you would have gotten had you seen the movie in its original roadshow presentation. It's a replica, of course, but that's pretty neat. Like, for example, this is pretty much a telegram from David O. Selznick's office. He's the producer of the movie. And it reads, to Mr. O'Shea, subject blank, date January 4th, 1937. One of our strangest possibilities for the lead in Gone with the Wind is Errol Flynn. Myron is going to determine from Warner Brothers whether they would give us a picture a year with Flynn if we gave him this lead. Please follow him up on this. For your confidential information, Cukor and I jointly feel that the choice is in the following order. 1. Gable, 2. Gary Cooper, 3. Errol Flynn. This so you may guide yourself accordingly. Dictated but not read by David O. Selznick. And there's several replica telegrams like this. Kind of gives you like a little inside the thought process of how the making of this movie worked. It also came with a CD sampler. This is like 8 tracks. Is it 8? Yeah, it's 8. It's 8 tracks from the movie, including, obviously the iconic main theme, which some would argue is all you need. We have this art of Gone with the Wind, and these are art cards of like the various storyboards and stuff that was made to make the movie. So that's pretty nice to be there. You have, this is funny, a disc directory, because there's so many special features on this Blu-ray. There's like a little map so that you'll know where to go on the disc. Now, I never got rid of them, but there's like little mail-in things for like Gone with the Wind jewelry and clocks and stuff that I never bothered. And then of course, you have the movie itself in multiple discs. By the way, this has like a 2-hour documentary of the movie, and it's excellent. But so yeah, now this whole set, I should mention, and I'm very careful when I handle this stuff because I don't want it to be worn out. This set they only made 150,000 copies of. My copy is 42,805. So the chances of me finding that again are fairly minimal. So Roger says not available on Netflix. Yeah, of course it's not going to be available on Netflix. Lisa says it also shows it after the Civil War and how slavery ended for the most part. It was woman who still had to overcome being woman. Yeah, and in fact, I would even argue there was a scene in Gone with the Wind that was very anti-Civil War in a good way, where at the beginning of the movie, the South is perfect and everyone loves everything, and they're going to go to war and they're going to fight for their freedoms when really they wanted to keep the status quo. They weren't thinking about, how they're negatively hurting their fellow man, that slavery is wrong, and that they're defying the Union in a very inappropriate way. And then there's that scene later where Scarlett O'Hara is walking through, the field of all these dead soldiers. Everyone who was so happy to go to war, now they're all dead, and the bodies are miles and miles. You almost can't see the end of the bodies. And that scene was always very, very powerful to me. So, anyway. Ryan says, too bad Disney probably won't ever do the same for Song of the South. No, they probably won't. Ryan Shirley says, I wonder if they will have anything in there about women's rights. I don't know. Right now, that's not anyone's concern, I hate to say. And that's one of the problems when you pull movies because a particular aspect is problematic, is if they come back with Gone with the Wind, it's like they acknowledge the racial problems in the movie, and there are racial problems in that movie, but then they don't acknowledge the women's rights issues. Well, I don't know. It could go down again. You never know. So, Ryan says, Mickey's melodrama, which has Mickey in the role of a slave, won't ever be on Disney Plus. No, it won't. But thankfully for collectors and film historians like both of us, it is on Mickey Mouse in Black and White Volume 2 DVD. And I do want to make it clear. I actually think going into the future, there's probably movies and cartoons that probably shouldn't be on streaming services. They should be on disc. What's concerning me is what happens if we get to a day where streaming is all that's there? Well, then you're essentially erasing history at that point. This stuff never existed. So as long as it's made available somehow, I'm not necessarily opposed to certain things not being on streaming services, especially Disney Plus, which there's a lot of old Disney cartoons that probably should never be on there because they're outdated and it's problematic even if you contextualize them. It's best to have a Blu-ray or DVD collector set where film historians who appreciate that will be there. Okay. Ryan says, I personally don't think so, but this is one of the many reasons why I'll always prefer physical media, Blu-ray and 4K to streaming. I agree. Sherelle says, thanks for this, Kevin. I think censorship is going a bit too far and getting out of hand. Yeah. One of the things I almost talked about, and I bit my tongue, maybe I will talk about it on my vlogs channel or in tomorrow's episode, but Cops got canceled. Cops got canceled. And the funny thing is, I don't know exactly why. Did it get canceled because it shows cops arresting a lot of young black men and people don't like that, which seems like a valid reason? Or was the reason because it also shows cops doing good deeds and having to deal with the stupidest people ever? And they don't want to humanize the cops. Is that the reason? That seems like it would also be, legitimate reason why they would have taken it away. So, I bit my tongue. I felt like that might have been getting too off topic, but it might be discussed tomorrow. Although I was watching Cops last night, and it really is a funny show. Like, some of the things these officers have to get with. I was watching this. This was bizarre. This was so bizarre. Where they had handcuffed. The guy was running around naked, and so obviously the cops pull him over and they handcuff him. They put him face down on the ground. I mean, they didn't shove it on the ground, but they laid him down and he's on the ground. And when one of the officers come, the arrest has already happened. We didn't get to see the arrest. And he's like, "So, sir, how you doing tonight?" He's like, "Huh?" He's like, "I'm having an interesting night, sir." It's like, "All right, so do you know why we put handcuffs on you?" He's like, "Yes, I do, sir, because I'm naked." And the cop just kind of stands like, "And why are you naked, sir?" He's like, "Because I need to get your attention. I feel I should be in a mental hospital, and I want to get your attention, so I decided the best way to do it was to become naked." This is a real episode of Cops, by the way. And it's like, oh, this show's hilarious. I'm definitely gonna miss this show. So I might discuss Cops tomorrow. But it's not too terribly hard to find the show on YouTube right now. There's a lot of really funny stuff on it. So DJS is quoting Gone with the Wind. Tamara says, no, they should keep it. Talking about Gone with the Wind. People complain about everything, then everyone will want to take everything down, and it's not fair to us who want it up. And, that is a problem that I have with this whole situation when you get down to it. I mean, thankfully, I'm glad Warner Brothers is responding to it in a logical, hey, we're going to take it down for the time being, tensions are high, and we're going to reintroduce it with warnings and discussions and things like that. That's okay. But then, let's kind of go back to this real quick. This is the headline. Hey, HBO, Gone with the Wind romanticizes the horrors of slavery. Take it off your platform now. You see, in the letter itself, it's much more reasonable. But the headline is, hey, this has a problem. Take it down. And Warner Brothers caved. Now, I don't completely disagree with them, but it does set that precedent. Well, people are going to see the headline. They won't read the article, and they're like, oh, someone demanded to be taken down, and Warner Brothers listened. They caved. And so as a result, I'm worried we're going to start seeing more demands that movies be taken down. That's the problem. And here's the thing. When it's on TV, you have to change the channel, but you can't just, skip it. But on a streaming service, you have to actually go to that movie and watch it. No one's making you. So that is my issue, but I'm glad that there is a compromise there. Scrod G says, Eddie Van Halen over here. Well, hello, Eddie Van Halen. How are you doing today? And let me go back up. I went a little too far. Tamara says, the status and movie have been there for over 50 years and no one complained. Why in 2000 and 2020 is it offensive? Well, here's the thing. It has been offensive for a little while. In fact, I'm going to share a story with my mother-in-law, because I know she doesn't watch this channel, that I was a little embarrassed about. Because here's the thing. I love this movie, but I acknowledge it has problems. Somehow, the topic of the movie came up around my in-laws. And my mother-in-law said, oh, that was a great movie. And usually when older folks, just in general, say that was a great movie, they quote something from the movie that stood up. Now, there was a lot of things that could have been quoted at that point. She could have quoted, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. She could have quoted, tomorrow is another day. She could have quoted, as God is my witness, I'll never be hungry again. There's so many things she could have quoted. And the thing she says after saying what a great movie this is, it says, I don't know nothing about birthing babies. A scene so racist that even racists look at that scene and kind of go like, gee, a little obvious there, don't you think? So, yeah, that's just the world. What can I say? It was really embarrassing, and I decided I kind of wanted to move on, and that was one of the few times I did not want to talk about it, because I was kind of worried that we enjoyed the movies for very different reasons. I didn't want to know why she liked the movie so much. So, anyway. Lisa says, companies always make generic products and say compare to. I work at a place that has tons of masks from all over that's being sold. They really don't have a case unless they see 3M on the packaging that isn't theirs. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning towards. Sherelle says, I got a few masks from Fry. Oh, Fries. Gosh, I gotta edit some more Fries videos now I think about it. When I start Uber driving again, I'm going to provide them to riders for a suggested donation of more than I paid for them, but not an outrageous markup. Yeah, that's what a lot of people do. I mean, the funny thing is, how many times do you go to, a ball game or something, and you see, someone's, selling a bag of Skittles for $2. We know that bag costs them 50 cents at the store, but, Low Roller Scratcher says, Lyft should buy Grubhub. I agree. That would make a lot of sense, and it would be beneficial to both of them, but for some reason, they're not in the conversation. Lisa says, if Postmates was smart, they would think about buying Grubhub. Well, I think that would have some of the same regulatory and antitrust problems as Uber buying Grubhub. So that would be just as equally problematic. DJS said if they are using 3M logo, it can sue for copyright infringement, not price gouging, which would be a state crime if a statute is violated. So you basically think they have no case. Sherelle says, I will use your link when I get Robinhood. I've never bought stocks before. I'll have to find some bare bones tutorials. Well, shoot, I might make a bare bone tutorial. Keep an eye out for that next week. And Lisa says, I'm going to check into. Laura Scratch, you need cover. How do you pay capital gain taxes investing on stock market in your future video? Well, that's above my pay grade. I mean, I do. Well, one of the things that I do, of course, is, I just keep putting money into the stock market. I rarely take out from the stock market. But yes, you do have to pay gain taxes. So thankfully, Robinhood does make that easy. If you start doing Robinhood, do not do your taxes until they send you a form, and put that form into your taxes so that, you can do it properly. John says, 5 years is long term. I have underwear older than that. Think decades for socks. Well, 5 years is considered long term. I mean, the thing is, because when people buy stocks, when they say, I'm thinking about the long term, they're thinking about the next 5 years. It's very, very hard to predict in 10 or 15 years. But most people can reasonably say in 5 years, I think this company is going to do better or this company is going to do worse. That's why it's called the long term. Ryan says, if you don't mind me asking, which title was in Wave 8 that you still haven't seen? That wave consists of Chronological, Donald, Volume 4, The Mickey Mouse Club, Annette Serial, and Dr. Sin, the Scarecrow of Romney March. Well, don't take this the wrong way, Ryan, but it's Dr. Sin, the Scarecrow of Romney March. I haven't watched it, and I'm having a hard time pushing myself to watch it. I know. You sent me the movie version, and that might have to be the compromise I make. But, yeah, the other two I've watched a fair amount of, but that one, I don't really know much about it. So, anyway. Low Roller Scratches, GameStop will survive for another 5 years due to the new PlayStation 5 or Xbox new console this year. Well, they'll survive not only because of that, but because they're also changing things that they sell. So, do you have the Casablanca Blu-ray box set that Warner Brothers released a few years later? Well, yes. In fact, let me stand up real quick and go over here. So, yep, there you go. The Casablanca box set. So, gosh, I'm a nerd. So, yep. Classic movies. What can I say? I love them. So, Ryan says, seeing how nice this looks makes me want to get rid of my single disc Blu-ray and get this box set. Hopefully it's not outrageously expensive on eBay. Well, let's look at that real quick. Let's Gone with the Wind Blu-ray collector. I think that's a good way to Well, there you go. You can get it for $300 or you can get it for $500. And those are pretty much your only two options. Oh, look, if you have you could get the Gone with the Wind Diamond Edition with a digital copy for $240. So, yeah, look, if you've got the money and you really want it, I guess go ahead, but that's going to be tricky. So, let's see here, Roger. Hey, thank you so much, Roger. Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Lisa says, I used to watch Cops all the time. Great show. I like that show too. And let's see here. John says, seems like the naked guy was actually thinking lucid. He probably was. And Lisa says, Postmates isn't everyone's major app. It's always last resort. And if they bought Grubhub, they may make some money. Yeah, but Postmates also has it's a market value issue. So when Uber buys Grubhub, they in some states and cities can get up to 90% of the market value. So it's the same with Postmates. It's enough places where if Uber were to buy Postmates, then Postmates market share would become Uber's market share. And the question is, well, how much market share is that? Because if it's too much, it's anti-competitive and monopolistic. So, but yeah, you're right. Postmates would probably make money at that point in time. Anyway, folks, we have caught up. We have caught up an hour and 20 minutes. This has been really, really fun. It's going to be interesting to see if we can keep this up next week. But anyway, if anyone is watching this after the fact, first of all, sorry for the ads. But secondly, I'd like to know what you think about any of these topics. Agree, disagree on them? I'd love to know. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.